Okay. Hello and welcome to the Human Sex Trafficking Awareness Night put on by LaCenter High School's very first Women's Studies 2 class. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to educate yourselves about this important subject. We hope you will all learn something tonight.
We are here to educate you and your children about human sex trafficking, what it is and how it can be prevented, and important things to know. We feel that in order to put an end to this industry, we need to educate our parents and young girls and boys to protect them from the modern-day slavery, sex slavery. The only reason that human sex trafficking exists in our world is because of the supply and demand system. And who do they demand? Our young 12 to 18-year-old children right here where we live. Children can be recruited from seemingly safe places such as restaurants, the mall, youth groups, parties, parks, schools, and other public places.
Shared Hope International is an agency founded in 1998 by Congresswoman Linda Smith, and it exists to rescue and restore women and children in crisis. It is the leader in worldwide effort to prevent and eradicate sex trafficking and slavery through education and public awareness. The following is taken from Linda Smith's book Renting Lacey and helps shed light on how a young girl would be taken.
Tina had lived in foster care from age 3 until she was adopted at age 12. To cope with her fears and worries about her new family, Tina turned to a friend that she made while buying candy at the local grocery store. This friend bought her gifts and simply listened to her problems until Tina decided to run away with him. Suddenly, she found herself caught in the dark world of prostitution, where she was repeatedly starved, threatened, raped, and beaten. The pimp used her vulnerability against her to get what she wanted.
Tonight we have Brianna Myers here, a representative from Shared Hope International and a former student of LaCenter High School, here to talk to you about her personal story of being trafficked. We will also have Officer Chapman speaking, who was involved in rescuing Brianna. Our first speaker is Brianna Myers.
Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is a really sensitive subject, and a lot of people are naive to think that it couldn't happen in such a small community or that it wouldn't happen to their family. But I want to share some information about myself and to just bring a voice to sex trafficking and awareness to our home community. So sex trafficking is domestic minor sex trafficking is the commercial sexual abuse and exploitation of minors through buying or selling or trading for sex. Rarely does an adolescent who is being sex trafficked receive direct compensation for their services. What does a human trafficking victim look like? Every girl in this room looks like a human trafficking victim. For you gentlemen who might watch porn, I want you to know that you are feeding the sex trafficking industry. Unknown to you, a lot of people, unknown to you, a lot of the porn that's out there is made by sex traffickers, and the people who are in the video are victims and being forced to do the videos. Now to let you know a little about me. I am a survivor of sex trafficking, and I would have never thought that I could be victimized for something like this. When I was in high school, if you knew me in high school, you knew that I was a pretty outgoing girl. I was It's just so hard because I just know everybody in this room. So when I was in high school, I was a pretty outgoing girl, and my parents, they were still married. I have 4 older siblings. I was involved in sports all year round. I did volleyball, cheer and dance, and then softball. And I loved sports. And I also loved school. I loved to learn. And ever since I got into high school, I knew that I wanted to be a nurse. That was something that I always dreamed about doing, inspiration from my mother. So it was my senior year of high school, and I just couldn't wait to be graduated and move on with my life and be in the college world and start living my dream of what I always envisioned my life after high school being. I was really busy with sports and stuff, but I wanted a job, so I got a job at the local country cafe up in Richfield, and I began to get regular customers on the weekends and develop just very casual relationships with people who would come in all the time. One gentleman, his name was Richard, and he seemed like he was in the business life, but when he came in, he was really laid back and very polite. He was a really polite man. We would just, he would come in and we would talk a little bit about, oh, what are you doing, and how's school going, and you're still going for nursing, right? Just a little conversation like that. I knew him for about a year, and I just thought of him as, just a polite gentleman, just kind of a regular guy. What I didn't know was that I didn't know him at all. He was portraying a false image of himself. He was using our casual conversations that we were having to get to know me and to gather information about me so that he could wait till I was in a vulnerable position and then use it against me. So about the middle of my senior year, I broke up with my boyfriend, Evan, and we were just having a rough time. And Richard, at that time, had came into the restaurant, and he told me that he was living in Seattle, and I was like, oh, that's so cool, like, I want to live in Seattle, like, he was really nice, and I told him that I had just broken up with my boyfriend, because he was like, why aren't you bubbly? You're always so bubbly and chirpy. And I was like, well, I just kind of broke up with my boyfriend. And so that was when he decided that, oh, now's a good time. Let's send him in, boys. So he called up his group and said, she's ready. We're ready to go get her. And so that was my stalker, and he sent in what I like to call an initiator. And the initiator knew all the information about me, about my life, my lifestyle, what I like to do. And he came into my restaurant, and he just seemed really cool, just a totally cool guy to me, of course. What they do is they will portray themselves however they need to for you to be attracted to them. And he came into the restaurant, and he was flirting with me, and he was really funny, and I was totally ready to kind of turn a new leaf because I had broken up with my boyfriend. He was a little older, and about 24, but at the end of the conversation, I asked them where they were from, and he said that they were from Seattle, and I was like, that's so cool, I'm going up there this next week, and I want to move up there later in the summer. And he was like, oh, well, when you come up, you should come and visit us. And I was like, oh, well, that would be fun, but yeah, right. Well, when they went to leave, he asked for my phone number, and I wasn't comfortable with giving him my phone number. It's just not something that I ever did, was give the customer my phone number. But he was like, well, I'm going to leave my phone number for you, so you can make the choice to call me. And later that night, I made the worst choice of my life. I called him, and it was kind of nerve-wracking. I'm sure you young girls can imagine talking to a guy in their 20s. You kind of are nervous about everything that comes out of your mouth, and you're, careful what you say, and you want to seem cool to him and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I was going through. But I was kind of excited at the same time. It was something new, and I was getting this attention from this older guy. It was cool. So he asked me, he was very persistent, and he wanted me to keep calling him. That's one of the signs. They're very, very persistent. He would call me in the morning and say, oh, call me when you're on break at work. And he would say, well, call me when you get off work. And kind of like that. Would just continue to keep conversating. And it turned out that he wanted me to come up to Seattle, and he was putting a lot of pressure on me. And I had made the choice not to, but then he was like, come on, like you said you were going to come up yesterday. Where are you? Like, come on. I want to show you the life of the rich and famous. And he was calling me like Skinny Minnie and Hot Mama, and just totally flattering me and trying to make me feel really special. So I went up to Seattle, and I lied to my parents. I told my parents that I was going to my friend Shay's house for the day, which I didn't. I went up to Seattle to hang out with my new friends. He wouldn't give me an address, which I thought was kind of weird, but he said that he would be my GPS. So he didn't want any paper trails with the address. So I continued to call him, call me when you get to this exit, okay, call me when you get to this light. And finally I show up to his house, and it's right on a lake, and it's this huge Victorian house, gorgeous house. There's a Mercedes in the driveway, just really nice. There's like 3 really nice sports cars in the driveway. And we just hung out and had fun, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta go because my mom wants me home. And he was like, don't go home, stay here. And I was like, no, I have to go home. My mom won't let me stay the night, And I was asking my mom, oh, can I stay the night at Shay's? So just really all around bad. But so I ended up staying the night, and he convinced me to move in with him. I decided to move out, and I had just turned 18, and I'm sure, since the age of 13 years old, I'm sure you girls and boys can agree with me that you want to be free, and you want to make choices for yourself, and you feel like you can have control of yourself, and that you will be able to make those choices for yourself. However, the choice that I made to move out with him, I didn't know that it was going to turn out the way that it was. I asked him, what about school? And he just had an answer for everything, because they had known everything about me. You can transfer your credits up here, he said. I'm like, okay. And what about work? Well, we'll get you a job, don't worry. He's like, hey, my ex-girlfriend was a stripper. Maybe you could start stripping. And I was like, yeah, right, just like really self-conscious and nervous. And so he was like, well, let me take you to the strip club tonight, and then you can see. It's really not that bad. My ex-girlfriend was a stripper. You don't have to worry. And he took me there, and I was like, okay. So he made it seem really glamorous, and he made it seem exotic and sexy and fun. And when I was in there, it was none of those things. It was dark and gross, and it smelled, and the men smelled, and they were old, and they were sweaty, and like just beer, like gross. I mean, it was sick, yeah. And I mean, I didn't know. I thought I knew, but I didn't obviously know what self-respect was. And unfortunately, I can never get back what I lost when I went up there. I gave away my whole body. I feel like they took a part of my soul. So I had to get back home to get my to get some of my belongings, and he wanted to go to vacation to Arizona. And so I was like, okay, cool, because they were gonna get a plane ticket for me too. And I was gonna be able to be back in time to start winter quarter, and so it was all good. Well, when I came, so I drove back down from Seattle to here, and he wanted me to find a friend to take me back up to Seattle for him, because he didn't want to come down here and get me, because that would be really obvious and shady. Just in case somebody was a little curious and called the cops or something, he's right there. So I called my friend Evan, and he said, yeah, I can give you a ride. I can do that. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was about 2 hours away. So I get off the phone, and I'm like, awesome, I got a ride up there. And he gets off the phone and picks his phone back up and calls his dad. Well, he talked to his dad and told him my situation. And his dad said, this sounds like something I heard before. He heard Linda Smith talk one time on sex trafficking at his Rotary Club. So he got a hold of John Chapman, and John knew right away. The cars, the house, the fact that he was so quick about getting me up there and getting me, on this plane to get to Arizona. So that's when the intervene happened. And when I got down to Evan's house, he was acting really weird, and he was like, he locked the door, and I was like, we gotta go, I can't stay, we gotta get on the road. He was like, we're not going anywhere until I know more about these people. And I just started getting mad at him. I said, these guys are helping me, they're my friends. Why are you, going against this? You should be happy for me. I thought that I was, moving forward with my life, and I was gonna go do great things, and, I was just excited. It was just everything I'd ever want, just on this silver platter, just here it is. So then Evan's parents showed up, and I was like, you called your parents? Like, you're telling on me? What are you, I'm 18, I can make my own choices. And then my mom shows up, and I never wanted to see Evan again. I was like, I can't believe you. I was so mad at him. But next thing I know, Linda Smith walks in the door, and she introduces herself as ex-Congresswoman of Washington State. And I literally thought, where's Obama? I'm like, why? Okay, I guess I'll listen to you. And she looked at me and she said, how about you and me go somewhere? If I take you and talk to you for a little bit, when we're done talking, I'll take you wherever you want to go. And I was like, okay, cool, because I was texting him under the table, I'll have to see you tomorrow. They got me cornered. He also warned me about that. He said, when you go down to get your stuff, understand that people are going to corner you. They're going to tell you that we're bad people. They're going to tell you not to come back up and hang out with us. But you've been here, you've seen us, you know how we live, and you know that we're good people. So he was right. They were cornering me. And I went and talked to Linda, and she started telling me these stories. And one after another, they sounded just like mine. And I'm like, where are you getting at? Like, what is going on? And she goes, this is you I'm talking about. You're being set up to be trafficked right now. you get on that plane to Arizona, you're already sold. Do you understand that? You're already sold. They already have pictures of you. They're waiting for you down there. And I was stunned. I mean, literally, I could not believe it. I knew about sex trafficking, and I knew that it was happening here, but the thing is I didn't realize that that's how the process worked. I didn't know that they stalk you and they get to know you, and then they woo you in, and they, do whatever it takes to get a girl in. It took a year for them stalking me, but they'll take longer if they need to. So when Linda told me that, I was just stunned. And then she told me that the average age of entry was 13 years old. Well, I could just imagine. I can remember when I was 13, I was so rebellious. Miss Newman probably remembers. So, how easy is it to convince a 13-year-old who's, angry at her parents and always wanting to go out and do her own thing, and how fun would it be to go to the mall by myself, stuff like that. It's just disgusting and disturbing. And when Linda told me that and sat me down, and she said, will you help me with these girls? She said, will you help me tell all these girls what's going on? She was like, because I don't know how to. She's like, I don't know how to talk to girls your age and tell them what's going on. And I said, absolutely. So here I am. So I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about how traffickers work. Recruitment, as I said, is a process that can last for a very long time. It doesn't matter how much time they need. They see a girl and they're gonna wait until she's ready to take her. Recruiters, what they do is they drive up and down the I-5 corridor. They drive from little small town to little small town, and they frequent places where girls are at a lot. Malls, restaurants, city parks, whatever. And they go there and they'll recognize what girls are there often, and they'll get to be familiar with the crowd around, and they'll kind of just see a girl that they think would be, I don't know, vulnerable, thank you. And they'll just watch her, and they'll keep tabs on her, and they may or may not get into conversation with her. And so if a recruiter's kind of talking to you and he can tell that you're creeped out by him, then he'll just send in another guy to come talk to you, a guy that won't creep you out. It doesn't matter, because multiple recruiters are sometimes necessary depending on the youth's comfortability with him, with an attempting recruiter, After recruiters gather vital information about the youth through bits and pieces of what we seem to think as innocent conversation, a plan is devised by the group, and an initiator is then sent in to lure the girl into a situation. An initiator, like I said before, knows you before he meets you. So he'll seem really cool to you and say things that you'll agree with because he knows everything about you. This one girl told me that she really liked sushi, and so her stalker initiator, he took her out to sushi all the time, and he ate it, but he couldn't stand it. So they'll do anything that they gotta do to get a girl. He is displaying a false image of himself to be an interest of you. Initiator will then start buying you things like clothes and jewelry. He might get you a cell phone so that you guys can just have your own little texting back and forth so he doesn't have to worry about your parents. he'll definitely, he'll be older, probably in his 20s, and he'll tell you, don't tell your parents that you're dating me. You'll get in a lot of trouble and you'll get grounded, and then we won't be able to see each other anymore. He'll give you things to say to your parents if they ask you questions. He'll always have an answer to any question, and I couldn't imagine being 13 and trying to get around that. I mean, I invited a gentleman to come, and he said, well, that wouldn't happen to my family. I'm like, okay. So here I am. I'm in athletics all year round. I work very hard in school. I was going to running start at the time, taking classes at Clark, all A's. I was very driven, and you're telling me that a girl like that, because that was me, can't be attracted to a handsome, charming man who is portraying himself as somebody who is just like me. I mean, he likes to do everything that I like to do, and he's really cool and fun, and she can't be attracted to him, because that's all it takes. It takes the initial attraction, and then one phone call is what it took. So it's not like I made all of the choices at once. It was one choice at a time that got me to where I was. And with that series of choices, I would not be here today. One of the hardest things for me after I realized that I was going to be sold was that how can I trust anybody again? I mean, how can I trust anybody? Everywhere I looked, everybody was looking at me, seeing dollar signs. I thought that I was just a sexual object. I thought that everybody was bad, and that's something that I'm still getting over. Growing up in LaCenter, you think that it's just cool to just be nice to everybody. And I realized that, you can be nice, but keep your information to yourself, and, don't interact with people who you don't know, and don't tell them things about your life, because you never know what they're going to use it for. Another thing that was really hard for me was that I went to hang out with some friends, just like a group of friends, when I got back. And it was the second day that I had gotten back from this whole rescue thing. And I just it was a month before I would have been the girl walking all around and making the jokes and, having a good time, but here I am, and I'm sitting in the, corner area, and I can't even get up. And I'm just I couldn't help but just look around the room and just think that I would have never seen any of these people again. And even people in this room, I mean, where would I be right now? So, just, I don't know, understand self-respect and understand what it means to own your body and make your own choices. And I know that life can be tough in middle school and high school, but just stick it out, because the people around you, they love you. I don't regret any of the choices that I made. I feel that that it all happened for a reason, and that reason is that there's girls out there right now in our own town being sold, and they don't have a voice. They can't go anywhere. And if they were to get out, how does a 13-year-old who's rescued from sex trafficking come out and talk to you about it? She's expected to sleep with 5 men a night and bring in this quota of over $1,000. She's sexually abused, mentally abused, physically abused. She can't go anywhere, she can't do anything. So I think that's my purpose. I think that's why I was able to get out before any physical abuse happened to me. Thank you. That night that Linda came and talked to me, John was the one that got a hold of her, and thanks to him, she was able to come out and be safe because they weren't sure if my pimp was following me out there, and it's very scary. It's very scary right now for me. I mean, you're always vulnerable, and but anyways, I would like to welcome and introduce to you a very inspiring man who works very hard, and his name's John Chapman.
Thank you. You guys should be awesomely proud of yourselves for having this many people here. This is incredible. You know what, Brianna, I just want to publicly say to you in front of all these people, you know, we can't always control those bad things that happen to us. It's kind of what you do with it afterwards and what character you've displayed in coming. And I would tell you, amazing. And it really goes beyond that. Not only, this is not the first time she's told the story, and as you might guess, this is not an easy story to tell, certainly in front of the people where she's grown up. Her mom and dad got up and said, we need to do something about this. And so her parents and Brianna got up, and, you know, within 3 weeks of this happening, you know, we're on the news, and we're telling their story to help save other kids. And her story's important. I mean, we could look and go, well, she's 18. It just happened to happen when she was 18. But the manipulation's the same, and that's why her story's so important. And you know why I appreciate you guys being here. Because when you have someone that's, you know, a great personality, attractive, an athlete, a great student, a volunteer in the community, you go, she's never going to be the problem, right? Because this is the perfect daughter that you will all want to have. And so, you know, in theory, and yet she was still manipulated. And that's what's so scary about human trafficking, and that's what's so scary about what these guys do. And Brianna laid it out. I'm not going to go over it all again, but these guys do that, and they're very calculating. The guys that do this are charismatic. They come and talk to these girls, and it's very scary what they can do. And then, you know, you can always go back and go, there's kind of a bad decision they made. And Brianna told you her bad decision. You know, she made that call and talked to that guy and then made the decision to go up there. But again, she was 18 years old at the time. And how's an 18-year-old think? You know, I want to get out. I want to be on my own. I have a great plan. I want to be a nurse. I want to go to Seattle. She knew what she wanted to go do. And these guys fed her the vehicle or the plan to get there. And so, you know, recognize that it didn't happen just like the flick of a switch. It was really a long process, and they just kind of led her down a road. And that doesn't mean that she's naive or silly or stupid. It just means we're all vulnerable in that way if someone takes the time to do it. And that's what you should recognize. And, you know, I would tell you, those of you that are here and have middle school kids, that's where it starts. And it can be very scary, and it happened. I want to kind of quickly tell you a story about a girl that we dealt with here in Clark County. And it was her 13th birthday, and she had 2 friends over at her house. And so Mom let them go to the Minute Mart, you know, during the day. And of course, there's a couple guys that are walking around the neighborhood going, hey, you girls look like you'd be fun. Why don't you come? We're having a big party tonight. There's going to be dancing and music and alcohol and guys. And you guys would just be fun. Just come have a good time. And this was pretty exciting for these girls because, you know, it was the summer before 8th grade. They were feeling like, hey, we're big. And so, and the girl had never even been to a party. She never had a boyfriend. And so they decided, let's do it. We're going to sneak out of the house. So they snuck out of the house later that evening, and they went to the party. And nothing bad happened at the party. There was some drinking going on, and the girl I'm talking about, she said, I took a couple sips just so I would look cool, but all I did was really sit on the couch. And her 2 friends were just dancing. And so some guy came up to her on the couch, and he spent the next 2 hours just talking to her. Telling her she was funny, and telling her she was pretty, and telling her, you know, she had a great personality. And all he got at the end of that evening was her phone number. And then, like Brianna mentioned, well, this particular guy, he kept bumping into her. And then and he's in his 20s. So again, 13-year-old girl, never had a boyfriend, guy 20 plus years old, paying attention to her. It felt pretty good. And you know, her dad was deployed in Iraq at the time. So, you know, just didn't have that man in her life. And so this attention was very nice. And very slowly he kept bumping into her, and then he started telling her things like, wow, we must be soulmates. And finally talked her into going on a little date. And guess what? He liked romantic movies just like she did. Right? And which is what I'm talking about. They're going to tell you anything this girl wanted to hear. So, of course, after time, she fell in love with him. And then one day, he came back to her months later and said, you know what, I'm out of money. I got a real big problem. I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to lose my house. And this 13-year-old girl said, what can I do to help you? He goes, well, if you could just do this one thing one time, and I could take you down to Portland to a strip club. Well, actually, he told her it was going to be a dance. If you could just come down to a dance club. And she didn't want to do it, but she loved him. So she said, okay, I guess I can go do it. So they bring her in the back door of the strip club, because of course she's 13 years old. It's illegal for her to be there. Brought her in the back room, and she's standing there with just some guy that she described as old enough to be her grandfather, and starts dancing for him. And then the guy's like, what are you doing? I didn't come here to watch you dance. Take your clothes off. And she ran out because she was shocked. And there was the guy out there, her boyfriend, said, you get back in there and do it right now. You're not going anywhere. And that was the start, and she was sex trafficked for 2 years after that. And again, I know this girl, and these are hard things to do. She's come forward and things like Brianna's mentioned, and talked to help other girls. But it happens. I don't want to scare you from going around every corner, but I guess ladies out there, just be aware, and when you see some of these signs, I guess you would just be able to take that step back and go, you know what, if I bail out right now, I'm going to get in trouble at home. Go get in trouble at home, because it's really way better than where that road leads, and just recognize that. I want to take a minute and just mention some of the things that Brianna did. She went and testified before the Senate Hearing Committee and helped change the laws in the state of Washington. And that's amazing. I mean, our laws in Washington are some of the best in the nation. They're parallel with our federal laws, so that we as police can prosecute these guys locally along with federally if we need to. One of the things there's a couple things I want to mention about the laws that maybe you don't understand, because this 13-year-old girl that I mentioned, we would say she's sex trafficked, but she lived at home, and so people would go, well, I don't get it. She wasn't taken away. She wasn't kidnapped. She didn't end up in California or New York. She did do some of those things. But being sex trafficked, is when you're taken from your place, whether through, force or fear or coercion, And coercion would be, I think we all get by force, you drag somebody away. The fear would be, you know what, I'm gonna hurt you, I'm gonna kill you, or how do I coerce you? Maybe I tell you, hey, you know what, now that I got you in this, I'm close to your family, I know where your little brother goes to school, and I'm gonna go hurt him if you ever leave me. Or I'm gonna go hurt your grandma that comes over every week. So I'm gonna coerce you into doing what I need to do, and sometimes it's through drugs, sometimes it's through just brute force, sometimes it's through shame, sometimes through manipulation. So you don't know where it's going to land with some of these girls. And again, I'm speaking with girls because that's really the majority of the problems. It does happen to guys. I know that's always a question, but it's the vast majority is girls. And so people don't have to be taken out of their community to be trafficked. So that's one thing I wanted to highlight for you guys. I wanted to mention what we're seeing locally. Obviously, I mentioned the one story I had for you guys. But as you get kind of more down into the city of Vancouver and the Portland area, the more urban areas, we're seeing gangs. Gangs are recognizing what a great commodity this is. Because if I'm a gang member and I'm selling drugs or guns, I only get to sell that one time. But how many times do I get to sell this girl? Over and over and over and over again. And these guys are bringing in $300 a date with one of these girls. So when she's talking about $1,000 a night, that happens all the time. So it's very tragic. I want to turn it over to Annie right now.
Now we would like to spend a little time answering any questions you may have had. Does anyone have a question for Brianna, Officer Chapman, or any of us Women's Studies students? Yes.
As a parent, I mean, we've heard what she's supposed to be watching. My daughter's only 11. What should I be watching?
Oh, me?
Watch. Repeat the questions so everybody can hear. Sorry.
So she asked that you have an 11-year-old daughter and you want to know what you should be watching for to keep her safe from this. So,
Again, to me, you know, when I speak, older boyfriends, always bad, never should happen. And, you know, for the people who work at the schools, no older boyfriend should be picking up any of these girls at lunchtime. No guy that doesn't go to this school. So that's something to watch for. Our kids are so much more technologically astute than we are. And there's a lot of games can be played on that cell phone. So you could be going to, I'm going to Sarah's house tonight. And then you could call there and they got it all worked out. So you end up with a three-way calling and you have no idea where she really is. So I would be GPS enabled. And I know you guys aren't going to like this. I'm speaking as a parent, as a police officer. Spy on your kids. I mean, you need to know where they are. It's that safe, and it really is for their own good. And I know they don't like it, and I know as a parent you want to trust your kid, but the issue is they may not know what they're getting into. And if we had time, we'd go story after story after story where they make a bad decision, and it just leads them down a road, and they don't see a way out. Sometimes with their brain, they don't see a way out to go, I'm going to get in trouble, so they don't know what to do, and they just continue down that road and get too deep. And now once they're down here, it's a really scary situation. Like where now the girl is over in Portland, and she's at a apartment where she doesn't know the people, and it's filled with adults, and they're bringing her lingerie and saying, put it on, we're going to take pictures of you. So that's where it leads. And so I would just inform them, and that's important.
I think it's important for your kids as they grow and get older that they understand why you're making the choice that no, they can't go out tonight, because they need to understand that they're the real things that you're scared for them. They have a right to know what you're protecting them from.
thank you. Is there any other questions? Yeah. Dustin, do you have a question?
Okay, so do people like this always travel in groups, or are they always separate from each other?
Question.
I would say the majority are alone because they want to take all the profits. And they're going to be watching, and like Brandon said, they're going to lose a girl here and there. They always got their eye on the next one.
Someone else have a question? Yeah.
Is there any way of catching those men that are doing that? I mean, like with Brianna, the men that did that, was there any way of catching them, knowing where they live?
Yeah, we did. We identified them, and we turned the Seattle group that does these kind of investigations onto them. But, you know, hers, because she was 18, without getting real technical, they were just dancing around on the edge of committing a crime.
Yes.
For the buyers, is there any legal ramifications to
Is there any what?
Is there any consequences for people who are trying to buy for the acts?
Yeah, the demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, the demand for supply. Is there any?
Yeah, there's actually, it's all in the laws, especially if someone is caught trying to buy an underage girl, they could face 10 years in prison. But the reality is, I think it's hard to catch them doing it. If we're just trying to bring in guys, like you see on TV doing the sting where police officers are pretending to be prostituted women, then that's a misdemeanor crime. And it's not that we don't care, it's that I would rather go after the trafficker. Just to give you guys, you mentioned have we caught any? In March, we arrested 4 pimps here in Clark County. 2 of them were women. So you don't always know what you're going to come up with.
Is there any other questions that you guys have? Yes.
Do you want to address the women, how the women do it? Because I know it's kind of different how they do the modeling.
So she asked how the women do what?
Well, you remember last year in most cities they were talking about how women recruit.
Oh.
Talk about how it's not just men, it's women that trick girls into thinking that they're so beautiful.
Yeah. like if you go to the mall and there's this girl who stops you and she goes, oh my gosh, you're so pretty and you should be a model and whatever. And yeah, they can also do it that way too. And I know that women who are already prostitutes, the pimps want them to recruit as well. So if there's a stripper and she's talking to this other girl and she goes, yeah, it's so like glamorous and whatever, and they can also do it that way too. So yeah.
We've heard what parents can do. We've heard what us as a person can do. What can the community do to stop this?
And just education. Education, for sure.
Well, what can a community do to stop this? For one, they have to be aware of the signs, the older boyfriend, new fancy jewelry, new nice clothes. And the only reason that I was saved was that Evan recognized something's not right here. I've had 2 other girls from this community, their parents call me and say, my daughter's best friend told her mom that she's talking to a 20-something-year-old. What do I do? And so I actually went and talked to their daughter and said, honey, you don't know what you're doing right now. I know that it seems fun, and I know that you're, getting a lot of attention, and it seems really nice, but, and I just gave her the facts that this is what his plan is, and so it's really up to the people around you to just watch over everyone. No girl should go unnoticed. To just make sure that, you know where your friend's at all the time kind of thing. And I talked to probably 5 different friends when I was up in Seattle and telling them I was going to move out, and they were like, cool, awesome. But that one friend that I called Evan is who made the difference, and that's because he was willing to jeopardize our relationship to have me safe. And that's a big thing, because you kind of feel silly and you kind of feel stupid, but it's your best friend's life you're talking about. So in the end, you're the hero.
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
How do we donate to the organization you're involved with?
The organization is Shared Hope International, and there's a money jar actually right on that table back there. And there's also books that you can purchase to inform yourself even more. But the money jar back there, all the proceeds will go to Shared Hope International, which helps fight against this, and it's the best organization to help fight this industry. So if you have any donations, then the jar is back there.
You know what? I've read the book. I would completely endorse it. It's a great book. It's a very hard subject. It's very well written. It was written by Linda Smith. It's an easy read, and then kind of after each chapter, she summarizes what's going on. It reads like a novel, but then at the chapter break, she summarizes, what's going on with the law, what's going on in the United States, and gives some statistics. But it is an absolute true read of what goes on, where she just, wove together the different stories of these girls, and it would be very educational for any of you to read it.
Are there? Oh, yep.
So if you were suspecting that this was going on, would you call Hope International? Would you call the police? Or how do people play into?
That's a good question. The question was, if you suspected that sex trafficking was going on somewhere, who do you call? And I guess my question for you back is, what's the process? What are you seeing? You can call the police, and if you call 911, if something's happened where it's an emergency right now, call 911. If something, you're like, this neighbor girl, I'm concerned about what she's involved in, and maybe you could just, you maybe just see a boyfriend that's older that's shaky and sketchy and whatever. Maybe you just, start with parents and educating people before she's in it. But so it's a hard question to ask because it's so broad, but I get it. It's just, depending on your comfort level of where this process is, Shared Hope is a great organization to get information and more information from, and maybe that would even help you answer that question better for you.
Probably another thing that you might want for parents to watch out for would be modeling agencies who are bringing girls in who want to start a career in modeling, who are very beautiful girls, and they're going to go in there and they're going to find themselves in a position where they're going to go in and model, and then they're going to start real slowly until they work off to them taking off their clothes. So I would think that would be a real big thing, because I know that happened in California.
For those of you who didn't hear, she mentioned that modeling is a problem. It is a problem. It happens at our Vancouver mall. And we've had people where these girls are approached, the guy appears to be a professional photographer, and then he takes them in one of the stores and says, well, look, try some different clothes, let me see, and then he'll have them remove, more clothing. He's like, I just have to see what kind of body type you are. And again, they're so manipulative, and it happens with these girls before, and now they've taken pictures, and then suddenly they're taking pictures with, maybe they're topless or something, and now you look back and go, well, now he's going to coerce this girl, because of course she ended up doing something she never planned on doing. And prior to this, he already got some information about her. So, you go to LaCenter High School. Well, what do you think if I email everybody up in the high school the pictures I just took of you? So now I'm telling you, you're going to come with me. And she's so ashamed and coerced that she does. And so, again, that's how it happens. And when Brianna was telling her story, I guess maybe what you guys didn't hear is that story from leaving here to coming back was like 3 days. Okay, so it kind of sounded like a longer story where she had moved out. It was 3 days. So these guys had the advantage that they had all the backstory before those guys came in from that first guy. And so their work was all done, and all they did was just set the hook and yanked and got her. So, again, you just don't know.
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any safe houses along I-5 for young girls that get caught up in sex trafficking or get out with no place to go?
What's funny is that when this started, we were originally going to fundraise to donate to a local shelter for these girls. There wasn't any. They're the only one that I know of that they said it was a homeless shelter in Seattle that had a program for girls that might have been victimized. But other than that, we couldn't find any besides Kansas. So there is not much. And that's why we want you to donate to Shared Hope International and educate yourselves and everything, because there's not much information out there and there's not many people that know about this. And so if we can just do little by little to get this known, then maybe there will be more safe houses for these girls.
And ever since Linda recognized that it was happening here in our country, of course, first they had to do the research through the Department of Justice and all of the State Department to prove to all of these legislators that, yes, it is happening here. And Shared Hope would like to, they're in the rescue, the restoration, and then the justice. So part of the restoration, their goal is to build a safe house. But the reason that they haven't built a safe house yet is because they don't know what it will look like. They've learned so much about pimps and how violent they are, and the Stockholm Syndrome, if that's familiar to you, it's when, you're very loyal to this person even though they're very abusive, similar to domestic violence. Even though this girl, you saved her and you rescued her and she's now in this safe house, he could, any moment break in and hurt her or take her or coerce her to come back with her. And so Shared Hope would like to build a safe house, and that's the direction that they're going in, along with changing laws and just facing everyday girls that are being manipulated into this.
These victim girls are really unique because they won't self-report. And what I mean by that is again, this could be a young lady that's in our community, and maybe this guy's taking her out on weekends or taking her out of school or doing whatever, and you would think, well, if she didn't want to do it, she would just come up to somebody and say, I got to get out. But they don't, because they're so manipulated. So it's a population of victim that doesn't self-report, and it happens all on the internet. We don't have strips here in LaCenter or Vancouver or anywhere else in Clark County where women are walking the streets waiting to be picked up. So it's all internet, it's all just under the layer of what we all see, and so we believe it's not there. And again, I would tell you as police, 3 years ago we didn't know what was going on here. And it wasn't, I don't think we were so naive, you know, just, we had other priorities and we just didn't see it. So it is a problem. And again, when you talk about a safe house, so not only do I have to keep the bad guy away, I have to keep the girl in. You know, right? Until there's almost like a deprogramming process. Again, go back to Brianna's story. She wanted nothing to do with anybody that night, right? She would tell you that it had no business, you know, why'd you go with Linda? Because you wanted to get away from your family, right? There was no reason. She just did not want it. She didn't want help, right? She just wanted to get away from everybody here. That's the way these girls, that's what happens to them. And it happens quickly. So again, they won't self-report. It's a hard group to get. So not only do I have to keep people out, I got to keep them in. And again, another one of the laws that Brianna helped get passed in our state was the ability for us to house a girl against their will for 15 days in the same way that we would do, you know, like someone that had mental issues. You know, we could, as police, you know, for their own safety, we could house them for a period of time. So it's that same theory, but the reality is it's an unfunded mandate because there's no money to build a place for them, and we don't have it yet. So that's still in process.
For the sake of time, we're going to save questions for later. If you have any more questions, you can stay after and talk to any of us. Would all the Women's Studies 2 students come back up on stage?
We're going to show you guys a video that Brianna gave us.
Do you know Lacey? She was born in your town about 15 years ago. She lives in your neighborhood. She goes to your school. She's in your youth group.
I went to a private Christian school. Wednesdays I went to youth group from 7 to 9:30.
The day before her 13th birthday, a young boy known as a spotter approached Lacey in public. He invited her to her first party.
We were like, okay, well, we're going into 8th grade. We might as well get our first party out, you know, like, let's just go have fun.
That night would change Lacey's life forever.
I was sitting on the couch just listening to music. My friends were off dancing and stuff, and some really cute guy comes up and starts talking to me. And he was like, okay, well, maybe I'll see you around.
He made sure they ran into each other.
I was at Starbucks ordering a drink, and he had said, you know, hey, do you remember me? And I was like, no, sorry, no, don't remember you. And he's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure I remember you.
He continued to stalk Lacey, learning her routine and approaching her multiple times in public places.
I went up to the Safeway, and we were buying groceries because my mom was at work, and I seen him there too.
Lacey had no idea these encounters were intentional. She thought it was fate, so she agreed to get together with him.
We started going on like little dates, fake dates. You know, I started thinking, you know, he really did like me.
This dating period was used to gain Lacey's trust.
What I'd do is we'd go to school on the bus, and then right when I got off the bus, I'd kind of just leave and go meet him down the street or something.
Lacey continued to see her stalker, and he slowly began to manipulate her more and more.
He got me a dress, and it was like really special to me. It was like, I felt like I was like a princess, like a queen or something. And he used to call me his queen.
Stop, go, are the only sign she knows. She's trapped in.
He kept saying that he needed money, and he was going to lose his cars and his house and stuff, and he's not going to have anywhere to go. So I was like, you know, I'll help you or whatever. And so we went to the strip club.
She had no idea that helping him meant he would rent her body out to lustful men of all ages. from all walks of life, night after night.
It's a night of heartache.
But Lacey's boyfriend groomed and manipulated her. He changed her name, her clothing, the way she felt about herself. He forced her into doing horrible, unthinkable things.
That night, my first night, I got in the car with 3 people, and I puked for about 30 minutes. And I don't know, I just couldn't stop crying.
Often Lacey was forced to have sex with 10 different men in one night.